Good day, my name is Angelo. This is Nation Voice Tower, that hub that keeps you updated on issues pertaining to the political system, the oriented polity in Nigeria, and as it affects the masses. Thanks for joining us. There has been an expose calling on the immediate sack of the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu. This particular letter or this call was not made by Nigerians alone. It is now made by the staff of the commission nationwide. I told you Kama would catch up with Professor Mahmood Yakubu, and unfortunately his Kama has come sooner than it was planned to come. Okay, what am I trying to say? Any of our leaders who put hands in things that are not really to the confirmation of the welfare of Nigerians, I bet Kama would come sooner than expected. We've seen the case of Justice Haruna Samani Simon, who has been on a wheelchair suffering prostate cancer for a very short while now. We are yet to hear updates from him. It's the turn of Professor Mahmood Yakubu, and this time around it has come in a different form. What am I trying to say? INEC staff demand immediate removal of chairman of INEC, that is Professor Mahmood Yakubu, and they even went far to write a letter to Bola Ahmed Tinubu to effect the immediate sack of the chairman of the commission. Over time, the Independent and National Electoral Commission, INEC, has been trending for the wrong reasons, right from the coalition that took place on the 3rd day of March 2023, where the adverse and crooked ways of Professor Mahmood Yakubu manifested, emerging Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the winner of the 25th February elections, which didn't go down well with Nigerians. In the wake of that, I think the staff of the commission nationwide have seen the other side of Professor Mahmood that they cannot contend with in the aspect of, his tyranny, his staff management, and every other thing. I think very categorically that they don't want to bring out the whole sins of Professor Mahmood Yakubu. So they have benchmarked his sack on tyranny and other things that you will hear from the official letter written to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, I have details on this call or on this pending sack that awaits Professor Mahmood Yakubu, and I will be availing them in a moment. Senior staff members of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, have demanded the sack of Professor Mahmood Yakubu as the chairman of the commission. They accused the chairman of neglecting the welfare of staff and prioritizing his own welfare through awards of contract that allegedly benefited him. In a letter addressed to Bola Ahmed Tinubu by concerned staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission nationwide, they advised the president to immediately effect the sack of Professor Mahmood Yakubu as national chairman of INEC. The letter, which was sent to an online platform called The Whistler by senior personnel of the INEC who claims to have attended some of the meetings where the staff debated the issues, called the attentions of President Tinubu to 10 issues they were aggrieved about. They described Professor Mahmood Yakubu as a tyrant who sees staff as slaves with no right to complain, and stressed that the system has become rotten due to the leadership style of Professor Mahmood Yakubu. The INEC chairman is also accused of refusing to implement the Review Duty Tour Allowance (DTA) and the 40% peculiar allowance to staff approved by former President Muhammadu Buhari since September 2022. The staff said they would also not benefit from the federal government approved 35% for all the federal workers to caution the effect of subsidy removal because he will say there is no money. This has been the slogan of Professor Mahmood Yakubu over time, to the extent that the national staff know him with this. They further claimed that the INEC chairman's promise to increase electoral hazard allowance at a meeting with staff in November 2022 was not fulfilled. Part of the letter read that Professor Mahmood Yakubu has also turned the commission into a one-man show. No commissioner can approach him. He takes critical decisions alone without the input from other commissioners, thereby seeing himself as a demigod. Professor Yakubu Mahmood does not allow staff to air their grievances as there is no medium or mechanism to address them, according to senior staff. There is serious financial misappropriation by Professor Mahmood Yakubu as he concentrates mainly on contracts that will benefit him. Relevant authorities such as the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, can be invented to check INEC financial records for confirmation, alleged by the senior staff. The staff stated they could no longer wait for the end of his second tenure in November 2025, as many of their colleagues had died due to neglect of staff welfare matters. In conclusion, the staff stated, "We, the entire staff of INEC, are disappointed over the leadership style of Professor Yakubu Mahmood, and we hereby pass the vote of no confidence on him. We want him to go now, since staff welfare matters, is critical to any credible election. We are tired of Professor Mahmood Yakubu's abuse of office. We humbly request presidential intervention in this matter so that the situation will not go out of hand, as the INEC staff may not want to go on mass protest over neglect of staff welfare matters occasioned by the abuse of office by the leader, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, the Honorable INEC chairman." Explaining why the staff chose to write a letter to the president on the issues, a deputy director in the commission said INEC has no labor union as it is not allowed. Those who tried to start 2 years ago were transferred out of INEC headquarters to different states by the chairman. He said in a chat with the Whistler, that online platform that unveiled this public letter to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. When the Whistler called on one Mr. Rotimi Onyekami, who is the chief press secretary to the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, on Tuesday, he said he was at a meeting. But while responding to a text message on the letter from our source, he said, "I heard about this later, but I have not seen it." To that effect, I would love to say, to the excitement and enlightenment of Nigerians, that Kama has caught up with Professor Mahmood Yakubu, and he faces, or he actually risks facing a sack later, or a sack if Bola Ahmed Tinubu will actually act on this plea. But I know Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually sees Professor Mahmood Yakubu as a very close crony, especially someone who played a very vital role in his emergence as president, his fraudulent emergence as president-select. So I don't think this letter will be taken serious, but let it go down in history and let posterity judge that there were staff members of the commission nationwide that called for the immediate sack of Professor Mahmood Yakubu due to various misdemeanor and electoral misconduct that were accrued to his name. Hope you enjoyed that update. Next on the list of my updates, I would like to beam my light on the issues that will befall on us tomorrow, the 23rd day of October 2023. What are those issues? The hearing to take place at the Supreme Court. The Apex Court over time have delved into various arguments. Lots of backbenchers, lots of legal practitioners have asked if there will be a point or there will be a time where new evidences will be admissible by the Apex Court as regards the ongoing appeal of petition by the People's Democratic Party and their presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and the Labour Party and its candidate Peter Gregory Onwubuasi Obi. In the wake of that, I have one of Arise News legal correspondents, Godfrey Zemoge. He has come up to really speak about whether or not the Supreme Court would admit evidences newly. Okay. Now, according to him, he is of the opinion that the Supreme Court rule affords Atiku an opportunity to bring in new evidence. At this point, there is a 50-50 chance of the court to admit or not to admit fresh evidences. Please, Godfrey Ozimoge on this one.
An open situation as it is, because Atiku is relying on Order 2, Rule 12, subsection 1 of the Supreme Court rule, more like its regulation. This is what spells out how matters that comes to it are approached, in terms of how evidences are tendered before it to be heard. So this rule of the Supreme Court affords him an opportunity to bring in new evidence. But of course, like you stated, it's still subject to the discretion of the Apex Court. Atiku has tried at this point, and then relying on this, it's still a 50-50 chance that the court may admit that those are fresh evidence emanating from the Chicago State University. These are depositions by the registrar of the university, which is now giving Atiku's case a fresh feel, as it were, if you like, in respect to approaching his quest to seek the nullification of President Bola Tinubu's election.
Right. Okay, well, how long, Godfrey, is this process expected to last? I mean, when can we expect a verdict from the Supreme Court? I mean, there is a time limit, isn't there, within which the appeals must be concluded?
Yes, the Supreme Court has 60 days within which to determine these electoral matters. Of course, we recall that the decision of the Presidential Election Petition Court was delivered on the 6th of September. So it has exactly 2 months within which to decide on this. So 6th of November, as it is, I'm sure, yes, by 6th of November, this appeal should be expiring, because that will be exactly 2 months from when the decision was given at the Presidential Election Petition Court. So from 23rd of October, when the appeal will be heard, it will have about, let's say, 2 or so weeks within which to decide. So 6th of November, on or before 6th of November, the Supreme Court is expected to deliver its verdict on the 3 appeals, that of Atiku Abubakar or the PDP, Labour Parties, Peter Obi, and of course the Allied People's Movement.
All right, because of the way that the Constitution of Nigeria has been overturned by various judges in different tribunals over the last few years, especially with 2023, one of the most, concentrated years where judges upturned our Constitution and made a bluff of it. I think there are lots of controversies and discrepancies as regards our own Constitution and the Electoral Act. Hence, the reason why we feel there should be a general clarification to what the Constitution poses, so we don't have a misinterpretation over time. All right. In the wake of this, I think that is the more reason why people are debating on whether or not the Supreme Court will admit new evidences or not, because of the just concluded case involving Chicago State University and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, including Atiku Abubakar, on the certificate forgery saga, identity theft, and all that. All right, so we hope things turn out positively tomorrow. Now, finally, before I call it quits, in other news, yesterday was 10th of October, 20th of October, I beg your pardon, 2023, a day to commemorate the End SARS protest day that brought a little reforms to the Nigerian police force. The End SARS movement actually was a social movement against injustice and impunity. The government and some other groups decided to capitalize on this and make it something awful by hijacking the protest. I have somebody to speak on this, Constance Ikoku. Constance Ikoku is actually one of the analysts with Arise News. She has more details. Stay tuned.
It is quite. I think people are more focused on the Supreme Court and the judgment of the elections, the 2023 elections, because remember that all that anger, all that protest and movement led into the 2023 election. And I think it's also important to say that that protest or that movement was a social movement against widespread injustice that had been happening for many years. The reason why it's important to say that is that the government and some other groups decided or sought to make it something that it was not, especially after hoodlums hijacked the process and caused destruction of properties across Lagos, and then that also led to the clamping down of citizens, and a lot of people were mowed down, unarmed citizens were mowed down in the middle of the protest. So let's establish that it was a campaign against impunity. When we look at Nigeria, we do have a record, by security agencies and other, including police force. There is a record of extortion, of extrajudicial killings, of the license to do anything against people, and they have no voice. And so when you go across the country, we have a big country. You talk to young people, there are ridiculous stories you hear about people harassed because of the hairstyles they are wearing, or people detained because they have a laptop and asked to get a receipt of their laptop. So these kind of things are happening, and that is what led to the protest. 3 years now, you look at it, did they achieve what they intended to achieve? Partially. I mean, okay, so SARS has changed its name, but it looks like it's only a change in name. The deep reforms that they wanted and the comprehensive reform has not happened. But what he also said was that people have the power to speak up, and if there is a sustained protest over a period of time, it is possible to get change and what you need. But it also showed the other side of the weakness and ferociousness of the state, because the state has the license to bear arms, so it will use it against you if you fight against its authority. And so that's what we've seen in the NSAS protest.
Okay, all said and done. There were names mentioned over time as to their involvement in the NSAS protest, the wanton killings that happened in the Lekki toll gate, and the hijack of the protest that brought about confusion between who the protesters were and who the fake protesters were. Okay, so these names actually erupted over time, but nothing was done on them or about them. So I tend to say that Nigeria was actually eaten up and is still being eaten up by impunity, injustice, and lack of straightforwardness, let me say. So I think Constance Ikoku's analysis were top-notch, and I don't need to say much on this. Thank you so much for staying with us. Before I call it quits, I would love to urge you, please like our videos, share them. Don't forget to drop a comment for us in the comment section. If you're watching me for the first time, please tap the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that when I drop an update, you'll be amongst the first people to know. Wouldn't you like that? See you next time. Bye.